All right, so hopefully this goes a little bit better and you all are able to hear me just fine. We'll try this again. See if we can get this going. Trying to get my audio up on my, or my comments up on my end so I can see if you guys are commenting. All right, here we go. So a couple things. I want to talk about the kind of macro crypto economics, if you will. The single biggest macro factor, if you will, for fundamental factor for cryptocurrency going mainstream long term is basically poor economic decisions by governments. And every government is making these economic decisions. There's no way around it. Our entire system is what's considered a debt-based financial system, which means that it will always, as long as we're in the current system, it's the same reason your grandparents can say, hey, back when I was a kid, a candy bar cost, a nickel or a quarter or whatever. And today it's, a dollar in most cases. Why is that? Well, prices are always going up, but why are prices always going up? Because we are in a debt-based system, and the way that the entire system is set up, it requires for inflation to exist. And when that happens, the money that you have today is not going to be as worth as much in the future. And we're in a situation where inflation is going to start speeding up more and more and more. So what I want to talk about today is some of those fundamental factors, and then I'm going to talk about the Dapp space a little bit, if you will. So first things first, hopefully you all can hear me okay. First things first, let's just talk a little bit about what's happened recently. Donald Trump said he's the chosen one. I'm the chosen one. So that just happened. Yes, President Trump, when asked about his ongoing trade war with China, deemed himself the chosen one when talking with reporters outside the White House on Wednesday. As Trump put it, when it comes to dealing with China's trade practices, somebody has to do it. He then added, I am the chosen one, as he looked up to the sky. The odd comment comes just after Trump compared himself to some kind of deity in a Wednesday morning tweet. This is regarding something that was said about Israel. Now, listen, do I think that Trump thinks he's actually a god? I don't think so. However, the guy clearly thinks very highly of himself, and that can be dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous because we don't know what the future holds, and here in the U.S. and really the rest of the world, I mean, he's making decisions that definitely is going to rush in Bitcoin. Now, I'm pro cryptocurrency. I am pro, Bitcoin. I'm the guy, the YouTuber who talks about Bitcoin going to $1 million one day. I believe that because I don't think there's any way to stop the financial train that we're on. Our financial system is broken and cannot be fixed. And if you don't believe that, you need to go to watch the documentary on my channel, Money as Debt. However, I don't like that we're going to have to go through this. It's going to be incredibly, incredibly painful. There's no way around it, though. It's not. There's no way to fix the system. Ultimately, will have to get dismantled, and ultimately, governments will have to use a currency that has the full faith and credit of the people, meaning the people actually believe in the currency and have faith in it. That's not going to be a government blockchain, by the way. That's going to either be some sort of currency backed by a hard asset like gold historically or silver, or I believe it's most likely going to be a digital currency, a blockchain currency like Bitcoin, for example. But let's keep going. Another example, the budget deficit is projected to swell to $1 trillion in 2020. That's 2 years faster than previously thought. A lot of economists say, hey, as long as inflation is slow, as long as it's manageable, it's not a big deal, it doesn't hurt anyone that much, et cetera, et cetera. I would disagree with that, but the biggest issue with inflation is that it's destined to speed up. I mean, it's literally a debt Ponzi scheme that has to end at some point, the way that I see it. And that's just my commentary, my belief on this. But take a look at this. We're going to reach $1 trillion in 2020. That's 2 years faster than previously thought. The federal budget deficit is not slowing down. No, it's speeding up. That's the scary part. Following the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019, the Congressional Budget Office updated its forecast on Wednesday. Hey, Taurus. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that thumbs up button if you don't mind. Hit that thumbs up. Let's get some likes up there. We're going to be talking about dApps here in a moment, but I have to talk about cryptocurrency and the fundamentals that I believe are ultimately going to rush in a cryptocurrency, a worldwide currency that's going to be a cryptocurrency. The number, sorry, let me back up. Following the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019, the Congressional Budget Office updated its forecast on Wednesday with predictions that the budget deficit will reach $960 billion for 2019 fiscal year, which concludes on September 30th. Sorry, that number is expected to swell to 1 trillion for the 2020 fiscal year, the first time the deficit could cross that threshold since 2012 fiscal year. Bloomberg also points out that while hitting the 1 trillion mark was anticipated, the 2020 prediction for the figure is 2 years earlier than previously thought. And if it weren't for decreased interest rate projects, the CBO's deficit estimates would likely be even higher. Kind of amazing. CBO increases size of projected deficits because Congress changed the law and is spending more than it said it would. Congress always spends more than it said it would. Yet CBO deficits projected level of interest rates over the next decade. The New York Times reports that rising forecasts are a result of sluggish growth in federal revenue after the Trump administration's 2017 tax cuts, which went into effect and bipartisan agreements to raise military and non-defense domestic discretionary spending. So this is where Republicans, listen, I like the Republican platform that talks about fiscal responsibility. They talk about lower taxes. That's all great. But if you're going to lower taxes, and I'm all for lower taxes, you've got to also cut spending. You can't lower taxes. It's like you getting a lower paycheck, but the credit company saying that you can get a bigger mortgage. It doesn't make sense to go into more debt when you have less money to pay the debt or to pay back the debt. And that is exactly the nonsense that's happening with the U.S. If you don't understand the economic system that basically the world is on right now, you need to go watch the documentary Money as Debt. And anyone in crypto needs to be paying attention to this. You have to be watching this. I don't care what all the crypto bulls say. I'm sorry, the bears say. Oh, crypto's, is going to end. Crypto's, not going to work. They are absolute idiots, in my opinion. The fundamentals are too strong. The current economic system that we're in right now cannot last. It just simply cannot. I mean, take a look at this. 30-year bonds, Germany's 30-year bonds are in a negative interest rate. What does that mean? It means that normally if you buy a bond, then it's basically supposed to be a safe haven asset if it's a solid government, a developed government. And the idea is when the bond matures, you're going to get, the bond plus interest. So you're going to make a little bit of money over the course of, in this case, 30 years. Check this out. Bonds have just dropped a negative interest rate. That means, think about this for a moment. That means people are saying, I will buy a $100 bond. I'm just using $100 for round numbers to give you an example. And in 30 years, when I get it back, I'll be glad to get $95 back. I mean, that is extraordinary. That means that people literally think that bonds could fall even further. Or if you have large deposits in accounts, very large deposits like, let's see down here. The European Central Bank is a big buyer of government bonds, blah, blah, blah. One way investors could make money is if rates continue to drop, bond prices rise as yields fall. That's nuts. Why are people buying at negative yields? It's mainly an expectation that you're going to be able to sell to someone at a higher price later on. That's nuts. A negative yield bond is going to sell for a higher price. Okay, hang on. I'm trying to show you another thing. If short-dated, basically they were saying that large accounts with large deposits end up paying money on their debt. They pay like interest. They basically pay a fee to have money deposited, and so holding these negative interest bonds are still cheaper than having all their money parked in cash because of the fees they would pay over the 30-year time period. It's still, to me, nuts to think about negative yields. That's a scary, scary place to be. That governments are actually able to issue bonds that have a negative yield, and people want to pay for them. I mean, that's just crazy. It's actually good for the governments because they pay back less money than they're borrowing. It's kind of like if you've got a $100,000 mortgage, but in 30 years, when you paid your payments, you were only going to pay $95,000 back. If that sounds crazy, that's exactly what negative yields are. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, but this is a sign of a massively weak economy. Main Street's not feeling it yet, but you can see signs all over Wall Street that we have a weak economy coming. Now, I want to say this because people, and we're going to get to Dapps here in a moment, but I want to say this because people are always like, um, when is this going to unravel? Blah, 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 blah. Let me just tell you something. The world has an uncanny way of not ending. Governments have incredible ways to keep this Ponzi scheme afloat. And I believe that it is destined to fail, no question. But I don't know if that's in 2 to 5 years or if it's going to go for next several decades. I mean, don't ever underestimate the government's ability to keep the system going. I mean, there's a lot of financial interest that want to keep, a lot of powerful financial interests that want to keep this Ponzi scheme afloat, if you will. But ultimately, and I am bullish on cryptocurrency because I think it's where we're headed. However, it's going to be very painful on the way there. Don't think that there's any way that it's not going to be. Not everyone will suffer equally, but there's no way around it. And that's not positive to say. But, being out of debt is going to be helpful for a lot of people. They'll suffer less. Having savings, having some sort of, owning real estate, some sort of income producing assets, hard assets that tend to hold up in weak economic environments. Rental properties hold up well in weak economic environments. I am speculating on cryptocurrency because I believe it's where we're going. But at the end of the day, you've got to sell your crypto to pull cash out of it. But it's better to hold some crypto and try not to have to sell it if at all possible. But if you do have to sell it, at least you're able to sell it. At least you have something that's going up in value ultimately long term. And my belief is there's no way that it doesn't ultimately go up. The question is when and how. But this system cannot sustain itself. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Taurus, for being here. All right, let's talk about the Dapp space for a moment. I have been in this space for a few months, learned a lot, watching everything. A lot of people are really bullish right now on Win or Wink or Tron Bet, whatever you want to call it. Let me just talk about it from both angles. Currently, they're supposed to have a license through, I think it's Caracas or whatever, Carousel. And a lot of people are bullish about that. And in the short term, I guess I am too. That's probably a good sign. But ultimately, two things that makes the Dapp space very risky. Right now, the Dapp space is basically a game of dilution. I think most people are finding out that you're trying to get dividends by playing dice, by playing ring, whatever you're doing, playing the slots or whatever. You're trying to earn dividends by mining tokens. And a lot of people are talking about the dividends. Hey, Paul, welcome, welcome. A lot of people are talking about the dividends being great and that sort of thing. The downfall is I think for most people, they're beginning to realize that dividends get diluted. And ultimately, there's not been one casino yet that I don't think that the people holding the tokens have really made a whole lot unless they've spent a lot mining that token. I think for the most part, dividend earning in the Tron Dapp space, for the most part, is a negative, and I'll tell you how I think you can win at it, but for most people, it's going to be a negative strategy. Most people aren't going to win at it, and I'll tell you why. It's the whole game theory FOMO thing. They want to keep playing and keep playing because they don't want to get diluted, so they want to keep playing and keep playing. And for most people, they can't stop soon enough, long enough. And if you stop, you see your dividends dropping, so people are like, no, I don't want my dividends to drop, I want to keep playing. But there's no way that the dividends aren't going to drop. I know a couple of people that have huge stacks of DICE tokens or WIN tokens or even live tokens. And most of them are, if they were to sell everything, liquidate everything, they would still be really close to break even. And that's not a bad thing if you believe long term in the casino and where it's headed, but it's not a big moneymaker. And it's still an enormous risk. The Dapp space is far more risky than even Tron. The Dapp space is far more risky than cryptocurrency, the other cryptocurrencies, like the top 10 cryptocurrencies. Because a lot of people don't realize that, first of all, it's great that Win has a gaming license for now, but we don't know where these regulations are going to come down. There's a couple of different areas, and I think the regulations are going to be hit the Dapp space hard. Now, the biggest players in all online gaming, the single largest player pool is U.S. players. Remember, I have some experience in this space. So that's the single largest player pool. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not sizable player pools throughout the rest of the world, but most countries have different types of regulations. Like some of the European countries have different types of regulations. The U.S. definitely has a lot of regulations, and for the most part, gaming is frowned upon. Now, you still can game with Bitcoin and with cryptocurrency currently, but I just wonder, someone said, I think it was in the Blaze chat, someone said, yeah, but the good thing about Wink is they have this Curacao, I think it's Curacao, gaming license. Yeah, but who cares? Eventually, if the US government wants to crack down on it, they're going to have to cut out US players. And if they cut out US players, then that's going to be an enormous player pool. And if Wink or anyone else is really trying to abide by regulations, they may even stop paying dividends to to people in the US. So that's something to be mindful of. At the very least, they're going to make it difficult to actually play through IPs, and you'd have to use VPNs and all that sort of stuff, which most people, the vast majority, aren't going to do. So that's unfortunate. Now, I don't think that's just one scenario. It is possible. I mean, there is a possibility that the U.S. government or regulators could be positive to the Dapp space. I mean, they could be like, you know what? It's a cryptocurrency. We don't really see that as a financial instrument, so we're not going to bother it. That could happen. My gut tells me that's not what's going to happen long term, but it could happen. It's just important to remember this space is risky overall. Even if they have successful businesses, regulations could burn us in the long run. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, gosh, I wish they were like choosing not to be regulated. I wish they were trying to fly on the radar, but no business has the stomach to do that currently. And you can't really blame them for not having the stomach to do that. But that's sort of part of me secretly wishes they were trying to do that. But if I was in their shoes, I would probably take in the regulation route as well. At some point, worst case scenario, you make a lot of money, and if you can't continue to do business because you're getting regulated, you just stop doing business. You made a lot of money while you could. And I think that's what some of these dApps basically are ultimately looking to do. I just hope as holders of their token that we're still able to earn dividends for the ones that we can earn dividends from. With that being said, most of these, as we've all found out, are going to crash and burn. Tron Wink may be one to last. They may be one to do the best. And the only way it's ultimately going to work and be profitable is either stop mining, collect, and be able to keep collecting long enough till you get to a profit or at least break even, or all the tokens ultimately get mined, the games go, or the dApps go pretty mainstream, and at that point when they go mainstream, a lot of people start playing, but they're not playing for mining purposes, they're playing just to play. Now overall in the dApp space, I think that we're going to start seeing, I think we're already beginning to see this, there's a lot of lack of enthusiasm in dApps because the get rich quick guys are quickly falling off. They're beginning to realize that, you know what, you're not going to get rich quick trying to mine tokens. You're just not. And so I think a lot of them are falling off. And overall, I think that's good for the dApp space ultimately. But there's just a lot of unknown about what the future holds. If in order for Tron Wink to make it, or Wink to make it, or Tron Bet, what do you want to call it? In order for it to make it, it's going to have to ultimately go mainstream, which means Tron's going to go mainstream, which could be good for those of us who hold Tron, and it may be good for Wink, but once it goes more mainstream, then they're going to run into gaming regulations. There's no way around it. And then ultimately what could happen is they're going to run into some issues with the SEC potentially if they consider the tokens an unregistered security because you're earning a dividend. And that is absolutely possible. It's also possible, I don't know if this is going to happen, but it's also possible that they could say, hey, it's not really a financial device. It's just a cryptocurrency. It's some sort of a, asset. So it's possible they could, regulators could leave it alone. But in my experience, from what I've seen, I don't think they are. I think ultimately, whether it's this year, next year, 10 years from now, if Tron Bet or any dApp goes really mainstream, there's going to be regulatory issues. So that's part of the risk of being in this space, and it's important to understand. And there's nothing that says that they have to keep paying you a dividend, et cetera, if you happen to be in a U.S. market or any other jurisdiction. that has unfriendly regulation. So that's just all part of the risk that we have in this space. But first, we have to see if Tron Bet can have a long term, can make it long term. Now, one thing I like about Tron Bet is I have mined a little bit of dice, I've mined a little bit of live token, but I really like playing poker. I'm going to tell you right now, if you like playing online poker, it's so easy to play. It's so easy to play, and these games are fishy. I mean, fishy. And it's if you are a marginal player in regular online casinos, you can play over here. You're not going to make a lot in dividends, but you can't auto mine it. That's awesome. You can absolutely win Tron if you're a halfway decent poker player. No questions asked. I absolutely love playing poker. In fact, it's one of my favorite things to do right now in the Tron space, the Tron Dapp space, because I'm all about doing my best to earn more Tron, and I'll earn playing poker if I can. They're not going to add Omaha no time soon. And a lot of people are talking about tournaments. They're not going to add tournaments either, I don't think. And I'll tell you why. The player pool simply is not big enough. If they start adding tournaments, if they start adding Omaha, if they start adding game variations, it's going to dry up the tables big time. I think that, in fact, this is all the table. These are all the players. I mean, there's just not a lot of players, and many of these people are playing up to 4 tables. So I ultimately would like to see some game variations, and I would like to see tournaments as well. But before they do any of that, I'm talking on Martin. Martin said poker's awesome. I hope they add Omaha soon. Before they do any of that, they need to fix some of the game's a little bit buggy. You can play 4 tables, which is fine, but it's really hard to play 4 tables. And because of the way that you 4 table, it's really easy to misclick if you try to play where the tables overlap, which is how I play. Misclicks are common, and it's a pain in the butt, and it can cost you. The other issue is there's no waiting list on these tables. The first thing they need to do is add a waiting list. It would help keep the action more consistent, because I know a lot of times I come over here and I'm looking for, for example, playing on a 10-20 table, and sometimes there's only 2 tables and they're both full. And you have no options. You can't sit at a waiting list at each table. You kind of have to start a new table, but that sucks. You can sit there all night and nobody ever shows up. So they definitely need to add waiting list, and they don't have that yet. So hopefully they eventually add that. The good thing about poker is online poker does not get treated like online slots and gaming regulations. There's a lot of jurisdictions that are more friendly towards poker, because in some jurisdictions, poker is considered a game of skill. So that is one thing that's kind of going in their favor. And a lot of online web sites have actually spun off their poker rooms to keep it a totally separate entity for that very reason. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds for Tron Bet and Wink and whatnot. So I like playing poker, and I like knowing that I'm earning the rake tokens, but at the same time, it could all end. I mean, as far as the rate tokens and everything else at some point. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we are early, like pre-adopters in this space for sure. Absolutely for sure. Now, Blaze Economy. Probably my favorite Dapp in the space, without question. There's a lot of, first of all, let's talk about this. They've gotten rid of the buy point feature, which is awesome. Now when you play, hello Daniel, how's it going? Hit that thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen, hit that thumbs up, please. Now, when you come over here and play Blaze Economy now, it's awesome because they've lowered the fees. There's no longer a 5% fee. It's a 1% fee. And there's a graduated fee, basically. Everything over 1.01 is now break even. But everything over that, there's like a graduated fee where you pay, the fee you pay goes up to 3% based off the whatever the rate is. So if the rate goes up high enough, I think if it's like 1.2 or 1.3 and up, I forget what it is exactly. It was in Telegram, but basically the fees ticks up slowly. Like for example, I think if it's at 1.1, I think the fee you pay is like 1.1%, for example, and it goes up from there, is the way I understand it, I believe. So that's super awesome, and it's for the first time ever, the energy cost. What's this? The energy costs are too high. I don't know what you mean by that, Martin. And Daniel says, I'm doing good, but Blaze price breaks me. I don't know what you mean by that, Daniel. But basically, the Blaze has switched. They're calling it Machine 2.0. And it's basically switched to a game where, just like poker, if you have patience, the focus is being able to earn Tron and actually make a profit in Tron. The dividends are a bonus, and the dividends have been quite good. They're low today because we've got some big point holders waiting to sell here in about 6 hours, and that's going to free up a lot of dividends when that happens. But yesterday I was able to play, won some Tron. It was awesome. We had 2 or 3 good chances to play yesterday. I mean, I think we hit 1.05 at one point. The game moves a lot slower. There's a lot less people here, and part of that's because of Trontopia and Tron Bet and that sort of thing. However, we're seeing some of our players come back. We had gotten down to about half this many players, but we're seeing some of our players come back. We've had a lot more than this. In fact, I'm not even up here holding points right now because I'm waiting for these people to sell. So I'll be playing later tonight, most likely, and the rate will go up. Kings has become more valuable to play only because, oh, okay, so this is when I do play, by the way. I always play when someone is holding down earning, because this just dilutes everybody. So I typically play, let's see what happens. Let's see if I get that. I always play when someone has the God King, because they're just diluting everybody. Oh, I lost it. Step it up. Kind of martingale it up a little bit. See if I get iron. And if I don't, we're going to upgrade, step it up again. Come on, come on, come on. Am I going to get it? It's going slow. That's one thing, for whatever reason, there's been quite a delay. Hey, Daniel, what did you mean when you said I'm doing good, but Blaze price breaks me? Oh, I lost that one. All right. So I'm going to go to bronze. See if I can get that one. We're waiting. Oh, I lost that one. All right, let's see. Do I want to go for silver? All right, I'll try it. And if I don't get silver, lost silver, man. All right, I'll try one more time. Hit all of them. The good news is that's raising the rate. The energy cost of each roll is too expensive. I'm in love with kings because I earned 5,000 blaze on 1 week. Man, I got slaughtered on that one too. All right, well, at least I got stone, so I'll hold that down. Daniel, who are you over here on Blaze? If you got 5,000 Blaze in 1 week, I would know who you are. Who are you over here? This is you? Man, you're sitting here watching me freaking hit you? Damn, you got to do that on the down low. Well, you slaughtered me, bro. Good job. Daniel is the freaking man because he slaughters it over here on Kings. And basically the key is everybody's not playing. So, I mean, it's easy to freaking, you ain't got to say good luck. You just slaughtered me over here. I'm done for now. You're over here eating up the God King status. Man, I'm sitting here live. Sitting over here attacking you. You're watching me attack you. That sucks. But I want to read through some of this over here because there was several people said some things today. I don't think people realize that. Let me just first say this. Someone said, well, they made some good changes to machine. Someone told me this in Discord, but it doesn't look like it's going to be effective. It's not that it's not effective. I think it's absolutely effective. The challenge is they're just going to have to build back, their player base. They should have made these moves far, far earlier. Plus, to be honest with you, this contest, to be honest, is a horrible contest. I mean, this is like going to poker and saying whoever's basically the tightest fish wins. if you want to have a contest, contest should be geared towards the gamblers, not the type players who are playing extremely strategic. And it's disappointing they made these changes, which are good changes to make. But then they come over here and they started this contest. There's King Damien. Good job, Daniel. Number one. But they started this contest, and in my personal opinion, it was just the wrong type of contest to do. Now's the time that you do a King's contest. Or you do a King's contest, and here's the contest I would like to see next. I would like to see a contest on Kings, but lower the rate. Right now on Kings, it's basically a 25% fee to play. I would love to see them lower it. Now, what the devs often do is they'll do something crazy, like they'll drop it down to 10% or 5% for a weekend. I say don't do that. You can always drop it down more later. But start out, just do a weekend contest, drop it by 5%, and then do a contest on Kings. Hey, this weekend, Kings is up. Damien just hit me. At least I got a little bit of it back. But at the very least, just do a Kings contest at 5% and then say, hey, whoever holds Kings the longest, he got it back. Whoever holds Kings the longest, then so be it. Or whoever earns the most points on Kings or whatever. In fact, here's an interesting contest. If there's a way to track who holds stone the longest, who holds iron the longest, who holds bronze the longest, who holds silver the longest, who holds gold the longest, have a different prize pool for each one of them. That would be an interesting contest. And for that weekend, maybe drop the fee down to 20%, for example. Give people just the added incentive to play. I think that would be a great contest. And what that would do is it would cause the rate to get pushed up. It would give a lot of people a chance to be able to play. It would be able to give people Blaze Manager. It would give people the ability to try to play strategically and earn Tron, and that's ultimately what this is all about. Even still on Blaze right now with the current adjustments, it is still a solid dividend earner. I don't think I collected today's dividends, or maybe I did. No, I didn't. Got over 100 Tron. And I'm going to collect those. But when this thing kicks off and we get, we'll have like a $50,000 day next time we have a 50,000 Tron day, I'll be getting up close to 700, 800 Tron when that happens. And I believe that's going to happen over time because Blaze economy is here to stay. Now, I think they're ultimately another game is going to be great. I'm not in love with Bazaar. I don't think they're trying to come up with an idea for a token burn. And I think that's going to be a challenge because no token burns have actually worked successfully on any dApps. There's none that's actually worked really successfully. Now, one thing that they did do is they lowered the rate of mining. They cut it in half. So now you mine basically when the rate is 1, you mine a half a blaze for every 1,000 Tron wagered. I think that's awesome, personally. It slows down dilution. And so that's a good thing. I think there's 3 things that I think they need to test. They need to test Kings, and they need to test cutting the rate to the point that the rate needs to be as high as possible where people still play it often. And that may change over time depending on the player base and how many people are here. But I say cut it to 20. Maybe what they do is they run a weekend contest. They cut Kings down to the fee down to 20% instead of 25%. They cut the fee down to 25%, and they run some sort of Kings contest for just the weekend. But they keep the rate down to 20% maybe all the way till the next weekend, just to see how it goes during the week when there's not a contest running. And I think they can always experiment with, dropping it down to 15% at another time, dropping it down to 10%, maybe drop it down to 12.5%. Just experiment with what seems to get more people playing, because I do believe that Kings can be much higher because there's always a reason to play. For example, I attacked King Damien earlier because he's holding everything down. And he's diluting us by getting the God King winnings. Also, when you see people start getting like 100, even 200 blaze, you can't help but want to attack them sometimes because it's like, man, they're just literally soaking up all the blaze over there. And when you have a lot of points out, you're kind of tempted to play Kings a little bit because you want kings helps the the rate goes up. This rate goes up like this mostly because people are playing a lot of kings. If people weren't playing kings, you'd see the rate just bounce side to side. So I think adjusting kings can be tested. I think it should be tested. I think the bazaar is still going to be a work in progress. I don't have a lot of confidence in that personally, but I think there needs to be another game. What's the game going to be? That's the challenge. I don't think anyone really knows. There needs to be some sort of game that feeds Blaze. A lot of people are wanting it to be like a dice game you can play with Blaze and the Blaze get burned and part of the Blaze goes to the rate. I'm fine with that. I do prefer for it to be a little more skill based, kind of like the exchange is, because I believe that that helps. It doesn't guarantee, but it might help avoid long-term regulations, because Blaze has already been around for 5.5 months. I mean, there's no reason that Blaze economy couldn't last for years and years and years. And I do think over time the player base is just going to continue to pick up, especially when people realize it's a lot like poker in the fact of you can play and earn a profit if you're patient and you watch the rate. People are talking about people want the timer cut down because they want more action. That's just going to make it far less profitable for people. It's just going to burn a lot of people if they cut the timer down. So I don't think that's a good idea. I think 12 hours, I don't think the timer needs to be much more than 12 hours, but 12 hours currently gives it enough time to get the rate up to over 1.01 a couple of times. If you sell more often than not above 1.01, you have a pretty good shot at actually playing this, earning Tron profitably, but at the same time, being able to mine a token that does get dividends. And if you go to crypto dividend right now, in fact, let's just check that out real quick. If you go to crypto dividend, right now, Blaze is at 0.24%. And it's very steady. It's one of the most stable dividend earners of all of them. Even with, please keep in mind, even with the price of Blaze being so low, it's still one of the most solid dividend earners. Period. It's always in the top 5, almost always in the top 5. It's an awesome, awesome dividend earner. And it's really more of it's a little bit more of a skill-based game. I mean, the whole focus now isn't even dividends. The whole focus now is a game where you can potentially play and earn Tron. And if you lose, you're paying a 1% fee plus the rate. And by the way, here's another dynamic. These guys here, all these big hodlers, they're getting screwed ultimately. Because if this rate doesn't go up enough, let's just say they're forced to sell at 0.97. That's a 3% fee that they're having to pay because they're going to be forced to sell early. And if it happens to them, so be it. They're going to be forced to sell early because they're stuck. They're the ones who weighed down the rate basically. So if they're forced to sell early and let's just say we only hit 0.97, which we might actually hit 1, but if we only hit 0.97, they're going to pay a 3% fee plus 1%. So 3% from machine rate being at 0.97 plus 1% fee is what we all pay to play anyway. So that's a 4% fee. That's just going to feed the dividends nicely when they end up selling. And by the way, now you only pay dividends, you only pay the fees when you sell. That's changed. There's no longer any fee taken out of every roll. It's just this game overall is tight. Like this is set up now to be a long-term game. It's extraordinary. Maybe in the future when I have more time, I'll actually do a full tutorial on the Blaze now that things have changed. And if you want me to do that, just leave it down in the comments. Let me know. Hit that thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that thumbs up. Blaze economy is awesome. It's my favorite Dapp in this space. Period. End of story. And then, of course, I like Wink, but we'll see where it goes. And people always want to ask about Trontopia. Trontopia is going to have to figure out how to come up with something revolutionary. 888 is supposed to be having a ton of new games added. So be it. I personally sold all my 888. This isn't financial advice. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. But I'm just an amateur in this space. I'm a net loser in this space so far in the Dapp space. So don't follow me too closely. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification icon. I don't put out as many videos as I used to simply because life is busy for me right now, but I am in this place. I am paying attention, and you don't want to miss when I put up a video. I will do my best to make certain that they count, covering the topics that you want to see covered in the cryptocurrency space and in the Tron Dapp space. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.